Recordings in progress. Good evening, y'all. This is Platoon, Foxtrot Platoon, week 8, day 1, HTTP clients. Uh, this is going to be our kind of first, it's kind of dipping our toe into something real similar to where we're going to be at the end of this cohort. Uh, this is about as close to building full stack applications as you can get without learning a single framework. We're going to be leaning into HTTP, or correction, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript very heavily uh, to build a front end and create kind of something of an API. We'll be creating our own calls right out of JavaScript. It's pretty bare bones, fully functional website, however, so it is kind of cool. And by fully functional, I mean you can read it. We're not going to be doing any creation, reading, updating, creating, updating, or destroying, kind of just reading. But if you're clever, you could probably incorporate all that into this anyhow. Since y'all already know how to do that, y'all write to CSV and stuff. So think about how you would incorporate stuff. HTTP clients. First and foremost, we're going to talk about a command line tool called curl. This stands for client URL. I use curl a lot for a lot of different things. Curl is simply a command that I'm fairly certain is built into all of y'all's terminals. I'd be surprised if it wasn't, but if it wasn't, you just have to brew install it. I'm pretty sure it's built down pretty close to the metal. All curl is a command to perform HTTP verbs. If I just type the word curl and some website, like you just saw me do earlier, that is the same thing as visiting Google. Curl with no command just performs a get. You can do other things with curl by providing it like put or post. You can specify get if you want. Delete is there. They're all there. And you can do a lot of kind of crazy things with that. Now, this might not seem very useful. Jordan, that's not Google. Well, this is a 301 saying, hey, you hit this exact site. You're going to have to be more specific. Go here. We might get something a little bit different. Look at all that. As you may have noticed, this isn't Google either. It's just a HTML file. Well, some pages are meant to be viewed like, via the UI. Some are not. We're going to get into the idea of APIs where some pages being served on the internet are straight up going to be nice, delicious, digestible JSON or YAML or XML if you're really gross and like that. And it's going to be easy to ingest that and utilize it. But as you can see from here, not all pages are designed for that. This page wouldn't look very good if we curled it. We would just get a HTML output of this page, which is a bunch of junk. But as you, with your experienced eyes at this point, can kind of guess, hey, this looks kind of like just HTML, Jordan. I know what that stuff is. And yeah, you could probably one-to-one this towards the Code Platoon repo here. But there are good reasons to use curl beyond just fiddling with APIs. You can do a lot of kind of interesting things. So we've got curl example.com. Great. HTML. Awesome. If we go to example.com, visit it locally, or not locally, visit it remotely, this is what it's supposed to look like. But with some clever bash manipulation, this isn't really that big of a deal. But just to show you, we are going to curl example.com Then we're going to pipe it, direct it into a file. I'm going to call that file myexamplesite.html. And then we're just going to open it. I think I've showed you before, you can just open HTML at any time. That's how it works from the command line. Easy to remember. You want to open a file, type open. It should open it up in your browser. So the difference between these two, if you'll look, example.com, this one though lives on my machine, and that's what I'm viewing. Sound good? There's a lot of things you can see with curl. Dash V, by the way, is verbose. You can also do Victor, Victor, or even Victor, 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 to get extremely more verbose outputs. Showing you the additional bits of this, such as the connection being made, the GET request, the type of HTTP protocols used, the message when received. Basically, this is what you sent, and these arrows pointing the other direction are what was received. And then when it's all said and done, saying, hey, I'm done, I'm not connecting to it anymore. You can also go kind of nuts with it. I don't really want to dig to and all that, but do it because it's here. We saved it into a dump file so you could really dig in. I'll be honest, I've never used curl with a trace to go track things down, but I have solved a lot of problems with the curl. Do y'all know what Postman is? Do you know what Postman is because you know what it is, or because Platoon has told you what it is?
We worked with it on Saturday in class.
Excellent. You can use Postman to do all kinds of cool things, troubleshooting, manipulation of data, and feel free to continue doing that. You can also use curl to kind of do the exact same things. Postman is basically an organized, nice, clean UI for all of the things you could just do with curl if you had to. Choose your tool. Curl is always available. Curl is going to be built into Docker images if you stand up, you know, a container or something. So having some familiarity with what it is can be really useful. However, I understand a lot of you aren't going to see major value in it just yet, and maybe never will. But someone talking to me? Or are you hot micing?
No, sorry about it.
No worries. Anyhow, now we know what curl is, so if I use it, no one can say, Jordan, I don't know what that is. Actually, yeah, you can. I'm not going to get upset. So, next bit. This is where we're going to heat up a little. We're going to build a fetch API. Have y'all seen the word fetch used with JavaScript? Looking for head nods or shakes or yeses, nos. I can only see. Yeah, great. Y'all know what fetch is. Fetch is kind of very similar to what curl's doing under the hood, except it's built into JavaScript. A little bit easier to use maybe than curl. Curl can get kind of ugly when you're doing really big, complex commands. I was working with those today. But JavaScript's another way to get it done within a JavaScript file. We're going to build an HTML page with some JavaScript utilizing curl to reach out, hit an API that exists on the real no shit internet, and display a page with it. So we'll blast through a little bit of this and move along. There's not really any instructions for what we're supposed to do here, but we've gotten familiar with looking at HTML pages. So I'm going to take some guesses and say, you know what, all this HTML here, I'm going to probably, he's out of here now. No, I don't use that. Hey. Yeah. We are going to code an index.html. That's what we like to call it sometimes. Paste all this here. So this will be our main page. Looks good. What else do we have here? A link to a style sheet. It's supposed to be style.css. All right. Oh, and that's where this goes, I bet. We're not talking about it just yet. But hey, some scripting, app.js. All right, we can make that too. But I don't really have anything to put there. So we'll keep that open for now. Save it so it's there. Just a quick look. We don't even need a quick look. Let's just see what's going on with this. Oh. Let me use our live share rather than opening it up. It's nice to know that you can open up these files, but I think I've said this before. This live share for VS Code, pretty great. Here's what this site looks like so far. You can probably guess what this is going to do, maybe at some level, but let's read and find out. All right. We can compare dollars or euros, maybe. What we're going to want is up-to-date exchange rates, and that's what this site is going to be. So we're not going to hard code any values. Like I said, we need to reach out to a third-party API. There is this one here, VAT comply, VAT comply. I don't know what that means. We can go check it out. And if you haven't dealt with APIs, you might be asking, what is this? So they're just giving this out for free? Yeah, sometimes. Very often APIs will either just have information out there, people just being good, good Samaritans. More likely they're offering some information, and if you want better or more of it, or you want to use it a bunch, you'll get rate limited. Otherwise, you got to pay them something. You got to sign up for something or something like that. But very often you can find just free APIs out there that you don't need to sign up or pay any money for. You just sign up, give them a token because they just want to see who's signed up to it. They want your information. If a tool is free, you are the product. Keep that in mind. So this here is going to have some exchange rates. I assume this is going to be updating with however often that changes. I don't know how often these change, and I work at a place where we're very, very interested in how often these change, but I don't care. That's not my job. But here are some exchange rates. So we should be able to tap into whatever this site is doing to get that information. Right here, the exchange rates API. But look at all that. To read what's going on here, by the way, the way an API works, we're gonna have to go to a URL with a designated, kind of URI pattern. The docs for APIs vary from very good, very useful to utter crap, and you will have to dig through them. I've had APIs that are super easy to work with, very easy to understand. I've had APIs that I feel like I'm not reading English. They can be very difficult to understand, and that's just the way it goes. This one here does something I like and says, hey, you want to get rates? Here's an example of how you do that. Just hit this, here. Something it doesn't do though is tell me, oh, here we go, actually. What if I wanted the base rates? You are just going to pass in a parameter, queryable parameter. So after rates, we're going to put a question mark, base is equal to USD. If you wanted to get just USD, which would be a 1, this is going to be USD to USD, so it's going to just be 1-to-1, right? This is what you'd hit, and you would probably get back just this guy. Oh wait, back up. This is how you get everything in comparison to USD. Sorry. So these are all of the exchange rates for an American dollar. A euro is 0.97 or 27 blah 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 of an American dollar. An American dollar is 1 American dollar. All these are the rest, right? Sound good? Did I lose anyone there? Oh, we can prove all of this by just going here and saying, oh, look at that. That's beautiful JSON. I know what to do with that. That's just like a JavaScript object, ain't it? It is. JavaScript object notation. It acts like a JavaScript object. So if we were to hit this site here, the full-blown bad boy right here, we would get this exact output. Seems good. So let's figure out how we can do that. Pausing just to double check. Is everyone up to where we're at? Don't worry too much about what this page is doing yet, but do you understand how I went to this site, found exchange rates, and found a URL I can use for later? I might be beating a dead horse here, but this JavaScript's going to get a little wonky. All right. So blah, blah, blah. Like I said, that looks like the endpoint I'd want. To test this, you could open up Postman, or you could just go there. Y'all do your thing. I'm not going to open this up in Postman. I just went here and it's here for me already. Why would I use anything else? Seems easy enough for me. If we were building out complex queries and complex endpoints, yeah, I'd be getting Postman all booted up, but we don't need that. Once this is done, we'll use the fetch API to make requests when a user selects one of the drop-down options. The user's going to select one of these drop-down options, and they're going to see something like this. Maybe a little bit cleaner than that, though. We're going to attach an event listener to it and write a function that should execute when that happens. So window on load, basically get this ready. Once this page loads up, we're going to have a selector that picks out the selector. There it is, ID selector, ID #, which is actually actually being called hashtags now. It's official. People call these hashtags. They're not # anymore. Sorry. Add an event listener to it. So we're gonna run with that. We need to make an API to get those exchange rates. So we should create a JavaScript method that is going to fetch that URL we had over here and get stuff for it. Notice the way this works out here is this is a parameter. That's just for USD. I don't know all of these terms here, but you should be able to utilize any of these other currencies, and it should update this information. So we need a variable here, and we need a base URL that we are just tacking onto to be dry. For one, we don't need to rewrite this out every single time, and make it easier to work with. So a little bit of pseudocode kind of going on here, but the make request function is going to accept a currency. This is going to be our currency. It's going to make a fetch asynchronously. We're going to have to await the result. If you didn't have this and you didn't have this and you tried to make a fetch, it would blow up when it got here, because it would say, hey, result actually it's JavaScript. It wouldn't blow up at all. It would say, haha, yeah, great. You told me to identify or define it. It's nothing. And then when you try to do this, it's going to say, oh, there's nothing there. I can't get rates of nothing. We have to asynchronously make a fetch because this doesn't happen instantaneously. We need to pause the JavaScript process here. Say, hey, until result happens, don't go to this next line. rather don't define this until result .json can be ran. Then rates is just going to be that result JSON.rates. Shouldn't lose anyone here. This is our result .rates is going to be this stuff, which is all really what we want here. This endpoint has date, base, and rates on it. Don't care about that. I only want this stuff. So we're going to treat it like an object and drill down into it. Once we have that directory, we need to convert each item to an HTML element that we will insert to the DOM. You guys have inserted stuff into the DOM before. This shouldn't be new. This will be a bit of a review, maybe a little fancier than you've done it, but that's all right. For that, we'll need to iterate over each element and follow the usual steps. So we're going to grab a reference from the HTML page, something here, create a new element, modify the new element, say, hey, we're plugging a new element into you. This is your data, and then append it to the new element, or rather, append the new element to the parent. The final result might look something like this. It's going to look exactly like that. Let's copy it and slap it in here and not look at it too closely. Oh yeah, this is a good spot to stop. We will look at it closely now. So let's just see if this works, huh? What do you think? Here's ours. Oh, that's not what I said we were going to do. I said we were going to use this live share, didn't I? Get out of my way. Port. All right, trash it. Open it back up. Ooh, look at that, huh? Ah, that's nice. That's better to look at, right? That's better than this. Maybe. I mean, I would rather read it this way, but this is how we're going to see it now. And look, we could click on it and do things. Seems good, right? I explained the process. I explained what it was going to look like when we were done. Now let's look at the code that actually performs that. Index.html has not changed. We had a, don't worry about a label. We had this selector here. It had an ID of selector and it had options. It had nothing, USD, and euros. When you pick one, nothing happened, right? Well, in app.js, we've decided that it will. We've set selector is going to be equal to document query selector and of the ID selector. You can look over our entire document here. I think this is going to be easier to read over here for you guys. Oh, how do I do that? Oh, goodness. Somebody help me. There we go. We're taking our selector here. And basically we're setting it to this variable. So that's it. Well, this selector here at the bottom now, we're going to add an event listener to it. On change, grab that event, and don't worry about that yet, but we're going to take the target.value of that selector. We look at select ID. So whatever these options are, their values are here. Okay. So whatever value gets selected, it's going to be this. So we have now linked this output that we see, this guy here, the USD, and we've linked it to an actual value we can use on the, not the back end, the front end, but you know, not the thing we see from the UI. We've got a value associated with it that we can query or utilize. Sounds good. So what does this make request? Well, it's right here. This is a nice little function that handles our fetch, basically. So asynchronously, we're going to take that, currency. What is currency? Well, we said whatever gets plugged into here is going to be currency. This is going to be currency. Right now, it's USD. So we're taking this option that we've selected. Don't worry about what's in between the two carets. That's not real. That's just what's on the page. We're taking the value USD right here. And we're running it to make requests. So asynchronously, we're going to take USD and we're going to make a fetch with it. Result is going to be awaiting the fetch of our base URL. Where's that come from? Right here. And we're going to add on that currency. So when it's all said and done, it's going to look like that. That looks familiar. That's just this. Right? And we're really just appending, interpolating into this string before we fetch. Concatenating, sorry. We're concatenating base URL and currency. So the result JSON will be awaiting the result into JSON of this. That's what we're getting. We could prove that if you wanted, but we really don't need to. We've seen what base URL plus currency is. If I wanted to do some debugging here, I'd probably do something like result, right? And I could see that, and then I'd want to see result JSON. I don't really have to run these, but that's how you would verify these things are what we expect them to be. Just as a reminder. And then rates, as I said, we're going to have to drill down into that JSON. So this result JSON is going to look like this. To get the rates, man, that keeps scrolling down on me. We're just going to run .rates because that's how you drill into a JavaScript object. Sound good? Does everyone follow me up to this point? Convert to HTML. That's not built in JavaScript. That's not some method we know. That's right here. So follow me down. Const, convert to HTML, rates. Rates, this stuff here, actually specifically just this stuff here, an unnamed object with key value pairs. Let's create a container. Container.html is equal to this empty thing here. Where's container getting identified? Oh, check it out. Container, we decided up here, is going to be this bad boy. This empty container. You didn't even see that before because it was empty. All these bad boys. There, check it out. Look, it's really actually here, though. See, that this is the container. It's empty. It's not pointing at anything. But when we fill her up, container is now this large box. We're just stuffing stuff in there, and it's getting huge. I was just at my cousin's house on Saturday, and her child took a small, tiny little rubber dinosaur and took a bunch of kinetic sand, and she stuffed this dinosaur to be about this big. It was hilarious. I'm just thinking about that. That's what we did this container. We powered a bunch of HTML containers into a container. That's all we're doing. It will expand to fit. It has to. It doesn't have a set size. Oop, I'm over here. Cool beans. So that's where the container is going. I'm not making anything up. We're just following the code. Container.html, inner HTML, rather, the inner bit of it we're saying is, hey, it's nothing. We're not setting that because we're going to fill it up with this other junk. We're going to make an array, and it's going to be an object dot entries of rates. This is basically a shorthand way to make an array in JavaScript. You could instead do something like you know, that, and then you would iterate through each of the entries, right? We would say like entries or for, you know, this is dadgum JavaScript. I'm doing the thing I say I'm not supposed to do, which is coding on the fly. Let item of entries do that. And then say you do that in JavaScript. Anyways, all of this here is being accomplished with this. We just said, hey, create a new array. Sorry, create a new object, and the entries are going to be all these rates here. That's it. Since we're creating an object, I almost feel like, I don't know, we want to basically say, hey, JavaScript is definitely going to be an object. Make an object out of this object. Or rather, make an array out of these objects. Rates array for each of the elements of this, create elements. Ooh, what's this doing? Well, let's follow create elements. Create an element. For each of the elements of these array, sorry, each of the elements in this rates array here, for each of those, I want you to create an empty div. Document, create element, div. The inner text of that is going to be the element. So this here, the text is going to be this junk. That's why if you look at these containers, the text is just that, and it doesn't look very pretty. The class name is going to be item, and container, this big container, the dinosaur we're filling with sand. Append this div to it, and do that for each and every one of them. That's done. This rates array is going to do it for each one of them. Run this each and every time. And that's it. It writes it to the HTML. Do we all follow that dance?
Yeah, I got a question on the one of the lines of code.
Yep.
On line 22, why do you have to specify that the inner or the container inner HTML is nothing when it's already set to nothing on the HTML?
Yeah, I don't think we need to do that. We can see what happens if we don't. Yeah, nothing.
What happens if you change it now to USD?
Oh, I know. I see what's happening, y'all. I know what's happening. Does anyone know what's happening here?
Oh, so when you run it again, it clears it. Otherwise, since now you commented out that line, it just keeps adding to.
There you go.
Okay.
Good eye. Good eye, Matt. Is that what you were thinking would happen, Matt?
Yeah, that's what I suspected would happen.
Very smart. Yeah, I didn't think of it. I didn't think of it all ahead. Cool beans. Anything else? Additional requirements. So we've done a lot of complex stuff here. Let's throw one more level of complexity in there. Why not? We're going to set up a Docker container and reference that Docker container also while we're referencing a third-party API. So we're going to have a Docker container sitting up in our running off localhost with some information on it, and we're going to be querying that, and we'll also be querying this third-party API. As often happens, once you thought you were done, another request came in. Sounds good. This time they want to display the currency symbol along with the name and exchange rates. As you noticed, this is Hey, where'd my page? Oh, there it is. This is not the prettiest looking thing. This doesn't really tell me what that is. It doesn't really tell me what it's in. This is just straight up math saying, oh yes, one USD is 150 blah 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 blahs of JPY. I don't know what that is. Let's make it we probably knew this request was coming. Let's make it a little bit easier to use. Since this is relatively stable and relatively small data set, we could definitely store those values in a variable. I read ahead. Yeah, so this currency's symbol along with the name and exchange rates, basically utilizing this, we ought to be able to find the full bit of information for all these things. Here it is. We need this. Now, Jordan's question, why don't we just add that here and hit the other URL with this code we already have? Bah, nonsense. We're gonna throw a container at you. That's how I would do it. We're already hitting the API. We might as well hit the API again. Blah, blah, blah. Since it's relatively stable, relatively small. All right, fair enough. If you can save a curl, don't do a curl. If the information is not going to change ever, may as well just hit it locally. Curls are expensive, especially, we're only pulling some small JSON. But if I was pulling, 300,000 lines of JSON, I'd want to limit that as much as I can. So pulling in this stuff, hitting it locally is going to be a lot more efficient than nailing this API a bunch of times. Maybe we can only hit this API 10 times a day and we don't want to hit it for this too. There you go. There's your use case. So we could save this in a variable. That's what I would do. I'd save it in some beautiful YAML. But we're going to mock out a second API. This is going to be a very simple little bit here. You all can run this, ought to be able to run this. It's going to spin up Chad Mowbray slash symbols. We don't know what that is. We can go here. It's in the repository of this org. I mean, we can look at some of this stuff if you want. Really nothing crazy here. It's spinning up a node server U. And look at that. It's just a bunch of JSON. And it's telling us if we hit a certain endpoint, we'll get that JSON. Don't worry too much about how he accomplished all this junk. It's just a node server serving this of localhost. So when we go to localhost of that port, it's going to iterate through this and feed it to us. I'm not going to dig too into node.js and how JavaScript's serving this. Not important. We're not going to teach you node.js because it's gross. All right. So let's back up. I think I had this running already. Yep, it's already running. So I should be able to check this out and see what's going on. So localhost 9888. Hey, there's a symbol here and it's got the symbol. Great. So again, like I said, what we could have done was just change the base URL to get what we wanted, but we're going to use this localhost URL. So we're bringing in a second API. Nothing different here. This looks very similar. It's just localhost. Don't be scared. It's just another URL. And hey, look at that. It queries parameters exactly the same way. Question mark code equals, and then it's going to look for a variable, I'm guessing. Where's the new code at? Get symbol. This probably could be condensed. However, Keeping it simple. Don't worry about refactoring just yet. Get symbol is asynchronously going to take a code, and it's going to fetch the symbol URL with a code. Where's it getting that code? It's running. Let me back up. How is it doing that? When do we call get symbol? Where's this called from? Because I forget when I was looking over this earlier. Okay. Get symbol. So symbol, when we call this element here, when we do this create element for each of these elements, it's just going to be element 0. It's just going to be this, just USD, right? Or just JPY. It's going to be that bit. Oh, I was looking at it over here. So when we're creating the element, we're going to decide at that point, this is what the symbol is going to be. We're going to go fetch it. And instead of putting in just the element itself, we're going to be putting the element and the symbol. Symbol runs pretty much the same query. The only thing I think we changed, yep, create element earlier was not asynchronous. We're going to have to make that an asynchronous function now because it's going to be waiting for symbol to be established up here. Whoop. Yeah. All right, so now we see what these symbols are. Doesn't explain what they are or how to say them, but I guess you'll have to Google that. Some of these don't seem to have symbols associated. That's interesting. What is this? Does anyone know?
That's Chinese yen.
So they both have the same. Interesting. I wouldn't think you would have the same symbol for it. This Japanese. Okay, cool. That's all I've got, I think. Questions? If that seemed like a lot to walk through it, we walked through it pretty slow. And I probably stepped over things a few times. But I wanted to make sure we walk through the whole dance of this so we understand basically start to finish how changing an element on a page is being isolated, used as a call, where it's coming from, how we're taking it in, how we're spreading it out, and showing it on the UI. The good news is you could probably copy this lecture, go find a third-party URL, change a little bit of code, change these URLs, obviously, and you could probably set up a very rudimentary read-only website like we've done here. Coincidentally, it's kind of what you're doing for your challenge today. All right.